IndyCar weekend is so much more than just a car race. It's a festival of color, celebrities, and excitement. The real excitement, the drivers and cars themselves. We're ready for the command to start engines.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And on Shoreline Drive in Long Beach, California, normally the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, but as the signs say, 195 plus today. The Indy cars are ready to run. Literally millions of dollars of technology. Now each engine roars into life. A moment of anticipation for the crews now gone, because sometimes these high-powered racing engines don't start like yours and mine. But in today's world, they're all ready to go running. And we're looking at the drivers seated in the cockpits as they anticipate the day that lies ahead. Throughout the great history of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, two names have dominated these streets, Andretti and Unser. In 1986, young Michael Andretti topped a star-studded field, earning his first IndyCar victory. 1988, Al Unser Jr. led 72 of 95 laps to claim his first win at Long Beach. In 1989, the younger Unser collided with the elder Andretti Mario. Al lost a nose wing, but went on to claim his second straight win. And last year, Junior proved he is indeed the king of the beach, winning his third consecutive Toyota Grand Prix. And this year, the king is back, looking to make it 4 in a row. But Michael is here as well, tired of second in the points fight. He looks for his first 91 win on the road to a championship. And Mario Andretti, a 4-time winner on these streets, hopes to regain his Long Beach crown. They are not the only challengers here. John Andretti arrives after his first career win. The 1989 PPG Cup champion Emerson Fittipaldi is always dangerous on street courses. After serious injuries, Scott Pruitt continues his comeback in his All-American True Sports machine. They all come prepared, but they'll chase one man, the king of the beach, at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Most of the streets in Long Beach, California are crowded with race fans, with the exception of the few streets that make up the Grand Prix circuit, as the Indy cars are ready to run in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Page, and we are seeing one of the most competitive seasons ever in the history of the Indy cars. The teams are getting closer and closer, and the competition better and better. Now, Bobby Unser, there's been very little change since last year.
Well, Paul, the rules really haven't changed since last year, with the exception of allowing carbon fiber tubs into the chassis. Now, what we're really looking at is an evolutionary car. The major change is the experimental gearboxes. They're transverse gearboxes used by the Penske and the True Sports team. Now, transverse gearboxes aren't really new this year. They were used back in the late 70s. The idea of the whole thing is that better aerodynamics underneath the car to make them stick better. But they normally don't shift quite as well. We'll see in the race.
Now, our coverage here today, leading up next week to the race at Phoenix, and then, of course, the 75th running of the great Indianapolis 500. And we're proud here at ABC to announce that we've extended our contract for coverage of the Indy 500 for a number of years. We hope you look as forward to it as we do. Now, Sam Posey, the issue right now is the race here today. How do you see it?
Well, I see it as a showdown between Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti. Unser, of course, has won this race 3 consecutive times and along the way led 87% of the laps. Those statistics speak for themselves. But he faces the inspired artistry of Michael Andretti, who has been hurling his car around this track for the last couple of days like a man possessed. Now, there are other great drivers in this race, but I don't believe that any of them has a chance to win it unless both Unser and Andretti fail.
Well, there are definitely others in the fight. Let's take a look at the starting grid. On the pole, Michael Andretti, his 14th career pole, his first here at Long Beach, alongside Al Unser Jr., winner of the last 3 races here. And then on the inside of the second row, Emerson Fittipaldi, twice a runner-up here. Now, this one's a little tough. For a decade, Rick Mears won in this yellow car, but now the three-time IndyCar world champion who stays with Penske, but in Marlboro colors. And Bobby Rahal, a runner-up last month at Australia. Scott Goodyear, the young Canadian, impressing everyone. Mario Andretti, a three-time winner at Long Beach. And Scott Pruitt, back in form after sitting out last year. Ted Prappis, the freshman driver inside row 5. Now here's another team change. John Andretti is no longer with Porsche, but now in the yellow car of Pennzoil with Hall VDS Racing. And Eddie Cheever, a former Formula One driver, inside row 6. Outside is Jeff Andretti, the fourth Andretti in today's field. Ari Luyendyk has changed teams as well. Now he is racing for Uno Granatelli, last year's Indianapolis champion. And Paul Tracy, making his IndyCar debut outside row 7. Scott Brayton finished 9th here a year ago. Danny Sullivan has changed teams, leaving Penske, and now drives Alfa Romeo Power. Inside row 9, Mike Groff, a sophomore, worth watching. And Didier Tays, who runs strong on the road courses. The 10th row on the inside, Tony Bettenhausen, with Chevy Power this year. And Bernard Jourdain filling in for A.J. Foyt. The 11th row, Randy Lewis. His best career finish came here 4 years ago. And Hiro Matsushita, a sophomore from Japan. The 12th row, Guido Dacco, a 3-year veteran from Italy. And Dennis Vitolo, a graduate from the Super V Series. In the final row, Mark Dismore is on the inside, a rookie making his 3rd career start. And Buddy Lazier, an 11th hour replacement for Phil Kruger. So that's the way they line up here under beautiful blue skies. You couldn't ask for a better day for racing, and there's a gigantic record crowd here at Long Beach ready to watch the Indy cars make their run. This is the 8th running of the Indy cars here, the 17th actual race, and when you think back 17 years ago to that first Formula 5000 race, this city has come alive in large part due to the presence of the Long Beach Grand Prix here. On board, there you're taking a look at Al Unser Jr. over his right-hand shoulder as the pace car goes off, and the pole sitter Michael Andretti brings him down to Nick Monaro's green flag, and they are racing as they scream down shoreline and head for that very first turn. It's a battle, just as suggested, between Andretti and Unser. Michael cooks his brakes hot, tries to hold on to the corner, and does so.
Remember, Paul, when they go into that first turn, the brakes are not hot. It takes about 2 or 3 turns to get them hot again. So Michael's brakes had a little bit too much set on the front.
It's Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr., Emerson Fittipaldi, and then Rick Mears, followed by Bobby Rahal as they work themselves through the backside of this course.
And it's so important on that first turn who gets in there first, because it's very difficult to pass through this part of the track.
In past years, Al Unser Jr. has been leading early in the game, and he is unaccustomed to running in second.
Sam, he just changed the setup on that car totally since yesterday, and so he's a little bit uncertain of it, but he'll know within 1 lap. Then he'll probably press Mario or Michael a little bit harder if he can.
He's pressing him very hard now already, looking for an opening, and the first lap isn't even over.
Without question, the fight is underway to the final hairpin, leading onto the long straightaway on Shoreline, the critical corner on this course, and it's still Michael Andretti holding on to the lead. He separates himself a bit from Emerson Fittipaldi, and Rick Mears has dropped back. But the fight is at the front of the field, and there it is. Here comes Little Al making a move to the inside. He takes the line away from Michael Andretti. Can they hold on? He's got it. It's now Al Unser Jr. in front.
Beautiful. That's as good a pass as you're ever going to see. Michael saw the car coming, left the room. He didn't want to end his race right there at the end of the first lap.
That just about tells you, Sam and Paul, the Little Al liked the setup that they changed on the car since yesterday. He wasn't happy with the car yesterday.
Paul Tracy with a problem as he runs through one of the runoff areas. Here's a young man we expect a great deal from this year. He's had a remarkably good practice session, but now he's caught. He's got to get some course marshals to come back there and pull him away from the wall.
He obviously can't find reverse gear. The car should have reverse gears, but he can't find it, so he needs somebody to push him back a little bit. He needs it desperate.
On board with the leader of the race, Al Unser Jr., as now he has a clear course ahead and will for some laps. And that, as he comes onto Shoreline, works to his advantage.
One of the things he has to think about is how hard he's going to use his brakes during the early stages of this race. It's a long race, almost 165 miles, and if he uses them too hard, and he did use them hard when he overtook Michael, he will find himself in the last stages of the race without the brakes that he needs.
The fight remains at the front of the field. Al Unser Jr. being chased now by Michael Andretti. In 3rd place, Emerson Fittipaldi. Bobby Rahal got around Rick Mears and moved up. Mears and then Mario Andretti. comes Fittipaldi through. Here is Ray Hall. There is Rick Mears. There is Mario as the field strings its way through once again the hairpin. And then here we come down underneath where they changed the pavement surface, which is one of the many challenges here, Bobby. In some places it's asphalt. In other places it's concrete.
Yes, and it's impossible for Goodyear to design a tire that likes both type of surfaces. So normally speaking, the tire works best on asphalt. When they go across the concrete, it gets slippery, and you can see the cars jump around a lot, Paul.
Mario Andretti sets up to challenge Rick Mears. It'll be very difficult for us. I'm sure it will be for you to recognize Rick in that yellow car. And look at Mario as he darts to the inside, picks up the position on Mears, but Mears has none of it. He's going to come along. Now we have a drag race on Shoreline. Mears and Mario Andretti.
And that's really literally a drag race because they go through that turn about, think of this, 30 miles an hour. It's so slow.
And touch up towards 175 miles an hour. A Lola chassis for Mario Andretti, a Penske for Rick Mears, identical Chevrolet power. And for the moment, it goes to Mario.
And you saw Mario pull right over and block Rick for a pass. Now that's good defensive driving. He did it early enough where it isn't considered like chopping him off or anything.
I want to point out, too, though, as we watch this battle, that blue car, the gray and blue car, that's Scott Goodyear with Judd Power this year, and he's staying right there in the fight. He is really looking terrific. Just behind him is John Andretti. Battle at the front of the field remains one of Unser and Andretti, Little Al and Michael. On Seaside once again, taking a look at 5th place, Mario Andretti. He makes a very critical turn. This is an area he just throttles gently through and tries to get a good shot for this hairpin turn, the most critical turn on the circuit because it leads to the long and very fast main straightaway. Al Unser has the lead. We'll be back. Nice little battle developing for 6th place. Let's take a look here moments ago as John Andretti in the yellow car cruises past Rick Mears. Beautiful little pass there. Mears stays in the fight. Scott Goodyear is just behind him. Magnificent battle. Rest of the field strings its way through on Shoreline. Mears now has separated just a bit from John Andretti. Just behind Rick, you can see Scott Goodyear, and Arie Luyendyk now begins to close in on Goodyear.
Andretti, of course, was the winner of the first IndyCar race of the year in Surfers Paradise, Australia, a few weeks ago, and as in that race, he moved up from an indifferent starting position, and he kept coming up and up through the field. We're seeing history repeating itself.
And the young Canadian, Scott Goodyear, is now beginning to challenge the master, Rick Mears.
He's been impressive. Scott Goodyear has really been impressive. He got really, looking really good at the latter part of last year, Paul. And all during practice at this race, he's really been dynamite. I'm watching in a lot of corners. He's running faster than the fastest of the guys.
The number 3 car is Mears. The number 15 is Scott Goodyear. That's Arie Luyendyk, and number 9 just behind him. And then Scott Pruitt closes down. We've got a dandy little battle right here.
Goodyear is 31, and he, among all the promising young rookie drivers, is the most likely to move up into one of the important rides should one of the top men falter.
Now the fight breaks off with Goodyear, but just behind them, take a look at Arie Luyendyk in 9 and Scott Pruitt in number 11 as they begin to do battle. Fighting for 9th place on this circuit.
Scott Pruitt, right there, the 11 red car, Paul, that you see, the 2nd red car that you see right there. It's an All-American car. That's the True Sports car that's new this year. Not foreign made, All-American made. It's quite different. It's an all-carbon fiber tub. It's got the Judd engine in it. They seem to be running better. Scott Goodyear has the same engine in it, and the car has a lot lower center of mass weight in it, and about 1,200 hours of wind tunnel time in it.
Just behind them, of course, running Eddie Cheever. Let's go down to the pits. Jack Aruta's there.
Paul, over the past several years, the key story early in the race has been fuel conservation, causing drivers to short shift and try and have enough fuel to go the distance. Well, our perusing up and down pit road this morning tells us they're not concerned about fuel consumption. So much so that they've opened the window to the first pit stop from lap 35, for some teams as high as lap 38. Now, there's several reasons as to why in 1991 there's not a fuel problem, and our colleague Gary Gerald can tell us more about that.
Jack, it basically boils down to two factors. The telemetry information has gotten so good, so much more information is available, that the teams have been able to tweak the fuel management systems to make them more efficient coming into the 91 season. Secondly, a lot of the teams have made very subtle aerodynamic changes on the rear wings, less drag, getting through the air better. And here at Long Beach, that's critical because of a couple of long, high-speed straightaways. So fuel, for once, may not be as significant a factor as it's been in years past on street courses. Paul?
Rather significant story, Bobby Unser. Little Al made a complete change.
Yes, he did. The chassis got changed completely from last year. Let me explain what Gary said. He's totally right about it. What they've done is they've taken what we call the wicker bill off the back of the wing. That's the item that makes the biggest drag. Now, they didn't pick up a lot of straightaway speed, but increased their mileage tremendously. And most of the teams have done that already.
As Al Unser Jr. drives away just a little bit, the battle is now at second place. Emerson Fittipaldi is chasing Michael Andretti. That's Michael in the number 2 car. Just behind him, number 5, is Fittipaldi. Of course, Fittipaldi started his IndyCar career on the streets of Long Beach. Now, if we take a look back, we're on board with Bobby Rahal. Just ahead of him is that battle for second and third, and Bobby Rahal is staying right in the fight as well.
Well, yesterday afternoon when I talked to Michael Andretti, he was so loose and aggressive, I believe he thought he would be leading the race at this point, to find himself instead being pursued by Emerson Fittipaldi and others. It may require a change of his mindset and his attitude.
Bobby Rahal right there. Now let's keep in mind also with him that he hasn't had a lot of luck in Long Beach. He doesn't seem to do well with the cement on both sides of him. I have an idea that he'll run. I know he'll run hard because he's a good race driver, but he'll also try to not hit that wall again and drop out of the race today.
Interesting point, though, Bobby. Rahal has been running closer to the concrete barriers during practice and qualifying than I have ever seen him. Remember, of course, he is the teammate to Al Unser Jr., so at this point, he is running second in the Gallus team.
All right, let's listen to Bobby Rahal. We listen to Bobby Rahal as he works his way through the gears on this circuit.
Is the driver sits so low in the car, his eye level is actually below the top of those concrete barriers. So when we look out from Rahal's car, notice how little visibility he really has.
All right, on board Al Unser Jr. now, leader of the race. Nice, clear racetrack ahead. What every driver wants to see, Bobby Unser.
You can watch him shift the gears. For example, he comes off of a slow turn, goes through 3 gear changes, just pop, 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 drives with his left hand. Of course, it's easy right then. Now he's downshifting. It's interesting with these cameras how we can watch what the drivers are doing with their hands, how they hold their heads, and little things that really makes a difference in the speed.
So Al Unser Jr. leads this race by about 5 seconds ahead of the second place car of Michael Andretti. Fittipaldi rides in third, then Rahal, and then Mario Andretti. The action is underway at Long Beach. With Eddie Cheever looking over his shoulder as he's been mounting a challenge on Arie Luyendyk running just ahead. They come down into the first corner. Cheever pursuing just as hard and hot as he can. And Cheever works his way through. A slower car lies just ahead of him. And look at that. Look at Cheever duck under Luyendyk. Scott Pruitt tries to get through too, and Pruitt makes it past as well. So Cheever and Pruitt move forward. Luyendyk back.
There's a deal where Luyendyk got caught out there, tried to get back in, but the other one had the whole plug before he could get there.
44 car is Buddy Lazier. The leader of the race is Al Unser Jr., who is well out in front now and looking right at a 4th consecutive win here in Long Beach. But Michael Andretti, who's about 6 seconds back, is still certainly in a position to strike at the leader.
Yes, but the showdown that I referred to before the race began, here's Tracy almost making a bid on Mario Andretti. Consider that, Paul Tracy, a rookie, looking to pass the veteran Mario Andretti. Of course, he is a lap back. But the showdown that we thought might happen is definitely being won.
And here's Scott Pruitt into the pits, suddenly and without explanation. And it's early in the race, 14 laps. That'd be well out of the window, Bobby.
Paul, I think he bumped the wall just a little bit ago coming off the turn. The car slid out just a little bit, and he just barely bumped the wall with it, and they're probably bringing it in just to check it out.
Pruitt was so badly injured just over a year ago. His legs, his feet, his ankle, just terrible injuries. He was in pain for months and months.
Let's go down there, Gary Gerald.
Well, we just came running in here, and just as we arrived, Scott has killed the engine, and now they're talking with him. They were working, and the concern was on the left rear side, and the crew continues to work right there, but the engine is off. He had some problems in the opening race at Australia. They've got early problems here at Long Beach, Paul.
But remember that magnificent run in the IROC. Now, the pass for the lead that you saw today was a result of drivers overtaking one another. With today's tip from the cockpit, here is Sam Posey.
Outbraking another driver is a quick, decisive way to pass. And in some places on the track, it is the only way to pass. The mechanics of the maneuver are simple, but the execution can be tricky. As two cars approach a turn, the driver attempting the pass brakes a split second later than his opponent, and his speed carries him alongside, taking away the ideal line. The car being overtaken is shouldered out of position and left behind as the two cars accelerate down the next straight. Things go wrong when you miscalculate and brake too late, locking your wheels, or when your opponent either doesn't see you coming or just plain blocks you. Long Beach has 11 turns, but only 4 places for outbraking.
Certain parts of the track are better for outbraking somebody because you usually had a little longer run at that person where you've got a little bit more straightaway, you can get in behind them, you have a chance to build up your speed. If it's just a pure acceleration to the next corner, most cars are usually equal to that task. The emotions when you pass somebody like that are quite a bit of elation because you've actually done it, you've pulled it off, you passed somebody. Usually a quick car, it's really a big elation because you've made that move and you've moved into another position.
And of course, we saw a great example of that. There's Buddy Lazier in the 44 car in one of the runoff areas sitting by the edge of the race course. Scott Pruitt's car still sits in the pits now with Scott Pruitt out. Now, he started his IndyCar career in 1988 as we see the safety team trying to get Buddy Lazier back into the action. Pruitt started here in 88. That time he used his life savings, there's Scotty, to rent a ride from Dick Simon. Pretty good investment in his future, I'd say, Sam Posey.
Yeah, he's always been a man who wears his heart on his sleeve. You really know how much Scott Pruitt wants this career in car racing. He spent that 70, 80,000 of his own savings, and he would do it again today if he had to get.
I think what happened, Sam, excuse me there, when he came off that hairpin turn, Paul, 30-mile-an-hour turn, he slid out. And apparently it hit a little bit harder when I mentioned that he touched the wall, and it broke our left rear suspension somewhere.
Now stretching his lead to 8 seconds over Michael Andretti. Al Unser Jr. carrying the number 1, which denotes the championship that he earned last year. Interestingly enough, embroiled at the end of the season in a fight with Michael Andretti, who finished second in the points. And of course, these two have battled here on the streets of Long Beach ever since the race began.
Well, Al's been a little upset at this race earlier, Paul. He's not been really happy with the car, even though he's been fairly fast. His chief designer, engineer Alan Mertens, is back building the new Gallus car in England, and he didn't show up for this race. Well, I was a little bit worried about that, but it looks like they got the setup pretty good.
That's, Sam Posey, something that really affects a driver when the team loses the personality of the individual balance.
Well, more than anything, of course, the driver has to carry that sense of aggression into the race that you have from qualifying, but then temper it with the judgment of the fact you're running a race 160 miles. So you have to be careful with your brakes, and you have to be careful in the traffic. You see the traffic ahead of him now. He's got an almost unassailable lead. You won't see him do anything stupid as he tries to pass these guys ahead of him.
Very carefully works his way trying to get under Hiro Matsushita, and that's Tony Bettenhausen that's just ahead. Now, we were talking about the Scott Pruitt situation. Right now, he's with Gary Gerald.
Well, Scott quickly away from the car and headed back into the sanctity of the compound. I know this is a bitter disappointment. Tell us what happened, Scott.
Well, you know, everything's real close out there, and Ari and I just touched lightly, and we bent the one of the rear arms. So, unfortunately, we don't have enough parts to fix it and enough time to fix it. But, you know, everybody on the Budweiser team did a great job today, and unfortunately, things like this have to happen.
Could you tell them out the damage? Will that create any problem being ready for Phoenix next Sunday?
No, not at all. It's just a matter of changing a few pieces, but we'll be back.
All right, thank you, Scott. Paul?
Bobby Unser, it's hard to imagine what a tremendous effort that is to build that All-American effort.
Oh, Paul, it really is, and they've done such a good job. Often you can't tell the difference from the outside of the car, but you ought to see the difference inside. It really is a good-looking car.
So Al Unser Jr. is around Maschusta, now gets around Bentonhausen and leads this race by 6 seconds. So Michael Andretti is beginning to close the gap just a bit. Michael started on the pole. Al Unser Jr. took over the lead, and he's staying there. The 50 car is Mike Groff. Mike Groff off the edge of the course. Now that white smoke would suggest to you that it's steam, and that might tell you that it's a turbocharger, not a fire. He's not like he's in real danger, Bobby.
Oh, it's like the engine looks like it probably blew, and it's getting like water and oil into the turbocharger, and just keeps smoking because the turbocharger runs 1,800 degrees.
7.5 seconds. Al Unser Jr. leads Michael Andretti. Remember, Michael started on the pole. And then Al Unser Jr. took over the lead on the second lap. He's been there ever since. 22 laps of the 95-lap scheduled distance, which would put us about 10 laps away from the very first pit stops.
He has led so many laps here before that he is doing something, it's almost like deja vu. He's experiencing something that he has done before many, many times.
Well, Al Unser Jr. rides in the lead. We asked him, what is the key to the fact that he has been so incredibly successful in such a very short time?
The main key is Rick Gallis. He is the best car owner I've ever driven for. He's a man that believes that no one man is bigger than the team, and that's pretty much our motto around the shop. And when the car owner says it and lives it, then you know you got something good. And I guess the next word that comes to mind is continuity. And Rick is our leader in the continuity. And you know, he's a super boss and a super leader. And everything, he's the nucleus of our race team. So.
There he is, Rick Gallis, the owner, part owner, half owner of the Gallis-Craco racing team, and certainly the man that has, as you heard, been a driving force for Al Unser Jr.'s career. We take a look at the fight for third place now, and it's developing between Bobby Rahal and Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi is the number 5 car. That's Rahal lined up just behind, and they're beginning to close down on the second place Michael Andretti at the same time. So Fittipaldi, who started his IndyCar career right here after his World Championship runs, and that brought him, of course, up to an IndyCar crown as well. Let's go to the pits of Jackaroo.
And Paul, the initial reports from Emerson back to his crew is that the car had developed a bit of oversteer. So they radioed back to him to adjust the front bar by 1 notch. Now he's very happy with the car. But the entire team is just pleased to be in the race because just 100 yards beyond the checkered flag in the last practice session yesterday, the drivetrain seized up on the car. They worked until 11:30 last night to locate the problem in the rear end. They've corrected it, but they said, but for a scant 100 yards, they would have started this race with a faulty rear end.
And of course, what Jack's talking about, Bobby Unser, is what you mentioned at the start of the show, is that transverse gearbox. They're bringing it back. The Penske team, Nigel Bennett, their designer, decided that it would help this car, and it sits in both Fittipaldi's and in Rick Mears. They tested it a little bit last year, but you think it's a problem?
Well, Paul, new transmissions really are, but this transmission is a different concept. The way that the gears that physically drive the car forward are made are totally different from that of what we know natural or normal rear ends in the automotive market are. And it's supposed to take less power to turn them, or they should go faster from it. But again, like I said earlier, it's a better aerodynamic package. It's the big game.
And one of the neatest things is that when you shift these cars, the movement of the gear lever can be made just by moving your wrist. You don't have to move your whole arm. The throw, as it's called, is so short.
Well, that's all in the linkage and how they decide to make it, Sam. The biggest problem is you're moving giant gears. You're moving the quick change gears when you shift. And It's different from a normal transmission, so the shifting has always been a bit of a problem.
25 laps of the 95-lap scheduled distance are complete in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Al Unser Jr. is looking at a possibility of a 4th straight win, but there's still a tremendous distance to go here. And we're coming now within a window that the teams would hope to get up to lap 36, but reality would really say lap 33 for the first pit stop.
Well, remember that at Surfers Paradise in Australia a few weeks ago, Al Unser Jr. was piling up a lead like this too, and he tangled with another car, and that was the end of his race.
On board Eddie Cheever, who runs down in the field in 9th position right now, and just behind him is Ari Leyendijk, the Indy champion, trying to catch up. And just in front of him is the 15 car of Scott Goodyear.
Now the fuel stops again, Paul. Everybody should remember that when they pit without a yellow flag the first time is going to tell us the personality of the race as far as fuel goes. What are the teams thinking of? Because nobody will really tell you ahead of the race. They're all having their own plans and they want it to be a secret. But after they make their first one, we'll be able to tell the people what their thinking is.
Tell you what, talk about that transverse gearbox as we continue to watch this battle for 8th place. Eddie Cheever closing on Scott Goodyear. They certainly, both True Sports and Penske, have been incredibly secretive about that gearbox. They don't want anybody to take a look at it. Now Scott Goodyear ducks inside Paul Tracy, who is running off the pace in 19th position right now, and that gives Eddie Cheever a further challenge if he's going to catch Scott Goodyear.
Just one more quick thing on the transverse gearboxes. Ironically, back in the late 70s, they were designed by a guy by the name of Pete Wiseman. Today, in the year of 1991, they're still made by Pete Wiseman.
Well, the Penske gearboxes, according to their release the other day, indicated that everything except the actual casing is now made in their shops in England.
Yes,
there's Eddie Cheever.
Except in the True Sports car, the Wiseman gearbox is made by Pete's son, Chris. Second-generation gearbox man, as you see Eddie Cheever get by Paul Tracy. Eddie Cheever, incidentally, spent the winter almost in complete solitude, he's told me, writing, of all things. A real thinker, Eddie Cheever.
Eddie Cheever drives on to Shoreline Straight, trying to chase those that lie in front of him. The most important of those is Al Unser Jr. He is now 8 seconds out in front of the second place Michael Andretti. Emerson Fittipaldi runs in 3rd. Bobby Rahal is 4th. Mario Andretti is 5th. Dennis Vitolo, Buddy Lazier, Scott Pruitt, and Mike Croft are all out of competition. We'll be back with more. Whale of a battle continues for 8th place as Eddie Cheever is climbing all over the back end of Scott Goodyear. We're on board Eddie Cheever's car, and that number 15 car is holding him up pretty good.
Well, what he's going to have to do is try to outbrake him, and there are only, as we said earlier, about 3 or 4 places on the track that are ideal for that. They're not in one now, but they're coming around to a very bumpy straightaway, and if he tries to outbrake him on the inside, you'll see the car really rattle around. It's at the end of this straightaway. There's Cheever behind Goodyear. You see him pull out.
Up, moves to the inside, tries to get the line away. They're both hard on the brakes, and Cheever takes the line, holds him up, and grabs the position.
Well, you say one thing he knew, he could count on Goodyear. Goodyear's maturity, he's a young man, just 31 years old, but he is a mature racing driver who wouldn't jeopardize both of them by pulling across in front of Cheever.
And as we saw long before that pass, going down the front straightaway, where we thought the pass would happen because it's a Chevrolet engine, Cheever's car versus the Judd engine in Scott Goodyear's car. Now, normally you'd think they'd have about 20 more horsepower in the Chevrolet. But
here's the other battle as they run in traffic now and move around Mark Dismore. Michael Andretti in 2nd place. Emerson Fittipaldi just behind, and then Bobby Rahal. So a nice little fight. Boy, look at Dismore. He saw the leaders coming and said, whoa, I'm out of here. Onto the hairpin now. 2nd place, Michael Andretti. You watch from on board with Bobby Rahal. That's Fittipaldi just ahead.
This is a track, Paul. It's very hard for a guy being lapped or a slower car because the faster guys are really so much faster, and the turns come so often he can't see his mirrors that often.
This is the fight on a circuit. 31 laps are complete. 95 laps, 158.5 miles, the scheduled distance.
Rahal has got to be in a terrific mood right now, Paul, because it's the best he's done at Long Beach in a long time this early in the race. Remember, at Surfers Paradise, the only other race so far this year, he finished a strong 2nd. So in many ways, if you think about the points battle, it's really Bobby Rahal that's leading the points battle overall right now.
Now, we have mentioned this transverse gearbox time and time again. This year, of course, two teams have brought back this updated innovation in racing, the transverse gearbox. The Budweiser True Sports team allowed Gary Gerald to take a look at theirs.
One of the things that's unique about the American-built True Sports IndyCar is a transverse gearbox. Now, gearboxes on IndyCars are always found at the rear of the bodywork, generally underneath the rear wing. The conventional access when they change gears would be from this position right back in here. But with a transverse gearbox, the whole package, which is housed back up underneath this blanket, and they're a little reluctant to let us show you too closely just what it looks like, has been turned 90 degrees. It's shifted so that the access is no longer from the rear. The access is now from this side or from the opposite side. Two major advantages for the transverse gearbox. First of all, it's a condensed package. It cleans up the tunnel work underneath the car aerodynamically so that the air that rushes under the car gets less drag or less resistance. Second major benefit, instead of being hung out here, it's now positioned about a foot forward, directly between the rear wheels. You no longer have about 50 pounds of gearbox weight hanging literally off the end of the race car. It helps balance and stabilize the car. Transverse gearboxes have been successfully developed in Formula One racing. They've been used in years past in IndyCar racing, but now they're being reintroduced on the True Sports entry that Scott Pruitt drives and on the Penske cars for 1991. We're seeing transverse gearboxes back in IndyCar racing.
Well, with an 8-second lead, Al Unser Jr. is out in front, but now the pit crews begin to go to work, many of them up and down the wall, ready for their cars. The stops should start shortly. Well, Al Unser Jr. has about a 9-second lead over Michael Andretti. Both those cars anticipating pit stops. Here is Emerson Fittipaldi in for the Penske organization. He was running in 4th place when he hit the pits, but of course he's falling steadily behind. When they whiz past at 175 miles an hour, a stop, even as quick as it may be, can be incredibly costly. Generally, the stops in a road course, and this one was 14.5 seconds long. Look at Rahal. Hey, Rahal handles up Ari Luyendyk and gets in the middle of that battle with Scott Goodyear. As Rahal tries to work his way, he's running in 3rd place. So what he's doing is up trying to lap Goodyear and has gotten around Luyendyk.
Now the cars should be handling the best right now, Paul. They're going to handle because they're all getting ready to make pit stops. They're really light on fuel, so the cars are light. They can brake late, zigzag in and out of traffic. Really good.
Let's go to the pits and Jack Arute.
Paul, the activity is beginning to heat up in the Michael Andretti pits. Here's why. Both cars are very loose. They are going to come in within the next lap or so. Both cars are going to make adjustments to the right front wing. For Mario, it's going to be 1 turn, but listen to this. On the left front wing for Michael, they're going 2 full turns. That's a big, major adjustment.
See Michael Knight there kind of making a gesture. They've been waiting for him for the last several laps. Mark Dismore no longer under full power on Shoreline. He'll try to limp that car back to the pits if he can. They pushed Paul Tracy's car past just a few moments ago. It was also not under power. So 2 more casualties of this race, as now in the pits themselves, Al Unser Jr.'s crew is already over the wall. John Andretti's crew is over the wall. And the Newman Haas team is ready for both their drivers, Michael and Mario Andretti. As he comes on Seaside and makes one of the last 3 turns, here's Eddie Cheever into the pits out of the Ganassi stable. And this brings him in right on lap 36, so the fuel mileage is exactly what they would want it to be. Cheever was running in 7th place as he came into the pits here.
Now you notice they can change, they're changing tires, Paul. Normally they can change 4 tires in the time it takes to fuel, so the driver will always get new tires. It makes it handle better.
Leader of the race, Al Unser Jr. is in. Here's Gary.
We're watching an award-winning pit stop team in action. The Gallus Craco crew servicing Al Unser Jr. They've changed the tires. They're waiting for the fuel. They're down off the jacks. This is an excellent stop. 16.2 seconds cleanly away, the leader of the race.
But of course his lead was only 9 seconds. And Al Unser Jr. relinquishes the lead. But remember that Michael Andretti, who picks it up, has not yet stopped.
Yes, so let's keep in mind one thing. There's John Andretti in the pit. One thing that happened to little Al's car, I hope somebody everybody caught. They changed the front wing also, Paul. Looks like they're all making their little chassis adjustments. Little Al got like a half a turn less.
John Andretti in the pits. There is Bernard Jourdain, not A.J. Foyt. A.J. says he will race next week at Phoenix, Arizona, the first time since his accident last year at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and it's very definitely back at the Indianapolis 500. Jeff Andretti, who is in this field. Buddy Lazier worked through. Here is the second, now the leader of the race, the number 2 car, Michael Andretti. Look at him kick that back end as he comes around the hairpin and makes his turn down toward his pit. Jack Aruta's there.
Michael Andretti, his crew goes to work. They're going to change tires all the way around. They are going to make an adjustment of 2 turns to the left front. The engine almost stalled. They completed the work. The fuel is in and easing away, Paul.
Mario Andretti comes in at the same time, making for a very crowded Newman Haas pit in 16 seconds. Michael is out and away and under power. Now Mario Andretti rolls away as well. You also saw Ted Pappas in the 31 car make his stop. But as Michael Andretti comes out, you see on the course the closing of Emerson Fittipaldi, who comes screaming down alongside. And Michael Andretti now has to hold off what is a challenge for position. Unser Jr. regained the lead as a result of Michael's stop. This is a battle for second place, and Fittipaldi wants it.
Well, it's a tight battle, and it's a question about who's going to have the best brakes. Both of them are heavy right now, Paul, and it's really, you could see when Michael came out, he wasn't too sure of it, but he's now getting back up to the speed he had a little while ago.
Well, look at Fittipaldi. Boy, he is all over the top. Lola chassis for Michael, Penske chassis for Fittipaldi.
And just remember, the changes that they make during their pit stops change the personality of the cars and how they handle. Does the driver like it better, or does he like it less?
Well, but whatever, he has to adjust to it right away, and when you have to make that adjustment with the pressure of another top driver right on your tail, that makes driving very hard.
When we watch two masters like this, we get a wonderful comparison of driving styles. The fight for second place, Fittipaldi and Andretti.
Emerson Fittipaldi has achieved what Michael Andretti dreams of achieving, that is to say, the World Championship. Very much Formula One racing is on Michael's mind for this year. He's hoping to be part of the McLaren team next year with Ayrton Senna, and that's something that he is thinking about every lap.
Don't forget that next Sunday here on ABC Sports, the World League action will continue as they head off to Florida, where the Birmingham Fire will battle with Kerwin Bell and the Orlando Thunder. And then, of course, our kart racing coverage continues as the top IndyCar drivers hit the track in the Valvoline 200 live from Phoenix, Arizona. Great IndyCar racing, great sports activity coming up here on ABC Sports. Fight for second continues. Fittipaldi trying desperately to get around young Michael Andretti, but Michael's not having any of it.
No, Paul, if you remember, they said that Michael was going to need some changes to his chassis, to his wings when he came in the pit stop. When he first came out, he's being very cautious and careful. Now he's back up to speed, and it looks like Emmo's not running up on him like he did a little bit earlier.
Michael Andretti, of course, already in a Formula One test program, may in fact leave the IndyCars. I think it's a certainty right after this year and go over and run Formula One for a while, with the possible exception of the Indianapolis 500 if he can. After 40 laps, well, Al Unser Jr. has been a dominant factor. The only other leader has been Michael Andretti, and they're running at a record pace. The track record's 85.5 miles an hour right now. After the pit stops, they're up at 87.8 miles an hour. So one terrific battle here.
It's a good day. It's a fast race. The racetrack is really good. And if people wonder why it's only 87 miles an hour when down the front straightaway, they're really running 175 plus. It's the reason we have a 30-mile-an-hour corner.
So at the front of the field with a 10-second lead is Al Unser Jr. looking for 4 straight in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Michael Andretti tries to hold off Emerson Fittipaldi. We'll be back with more after this message and a word from your ABC station. Alonso Jr. runs 9 seconds, almost 10 in the lead, and just tosses his car anywhere he wants on this course. I'm amazed at how much he's kicking the back end of the car around. In fact, all of the cars seem to be running a little bit looser this year. The driver's capable of doing a great deal more with him. Up through the gears for little Al.
The thing to really watch for the people is watch that right front tire on the inboard cam as it goes through the turns. You can see where the pressure of the tire, where it really is pushing. Now watch, it'll go dark right in the center through the turns, and then as he gets on the straightaways, you'll see it get light. And you'll see that on all the onboard cams, and that determines how much camber they put in the right front.
That 37.5 in the center of the steering wheel tells little Al what his flow meter ought to read when they want to make a pit stop. There's Shelley, Sir Little Al's wife, as she watches from pit side right there on the scoring stand and listens to the radio not far away in the PPG hospitality pen. Many people can watch on television. Here's Jack Arute.
And they've got all the large screen TVs decked out in here, and one of the honored guests that's watching everything from inside the PPG tent is A.J. Foyt. A.J., Bernard Jourdain turning the wheel today, but Phoenix coming up. Will you be at the cockpit?
Well, we're still talking about it, and talked to Dr. Trammell today, and we're wanting to, but we don't know if we're going to be released yet for Phoenix at the present time.
How are the feet? Indy is the thing that's so very important, though. Indy for you, that's where you want to gear to.
Well, that's quite true, and that's what we're working for. And if anything slight would happen at Phoenix, and we didn't get time to go out to test like we wanted to, so I'll be there, but we don't know if I'm going to drive yet or not.
Do you want to know what a 4-time winner of the Indianapolis 500 eats? Oh, a little melon, a little pineapple, and get this, 2 big brownies.
Well, A.J. Foyt is looking fit. By the way, you remember last year at Indy, they made him Dr. Foyt, an honorary degree from the Rose-Hulman Institute. Well, this morning, the U.S. Navy made him a captain. Oh, I hope they don't give him a battleship.
Paul, you know, it's hard on Foyt to be hurt like this, to be laid up. In all of his years of racing, he's been hurt, of course, but never this bad. It's really a new thing for him.
Well, we're up to the 45th lap, so we're approaching the halfway. 95 laps of scheduled distance. Al Unser Jr. led 39 of 41 laps that he ran in Australia. Today, he's 43 of the 45 already run. He's led 82 of 86 laps in the 2 races that he's run this year. What a remarkable young man. He's coming back here as the champion and intending to show it to everybody.
Look at the race still going on between Michael and Emo. They've just been going at this thing tooth and toenail for a long time, and neither one of them giving up.
Nice fight for 10th places. Ari Leyendijk in the number 9 car tries to get around Scott Brayton in number 22. That's Randy Lewis off the pace just a bit, that runs ahead of them. So they have to contend not only with their own battle, but be able to pace themselves to that car ahead.
Ari Leyendijk in that bright red car, number 9, right there. Living now in Scottsdale, Arizona, owns an art gallery featuring sports art. He spends his day, half of it at the art gallery, half of it at the race shop. I talked to him the other day. He's rail thin. I think he has the body weight of a marathoner. And he said he can't put on any weight. He works out all the time, but he just can't gain any weight. He's in incredibly good shape.
That car, Ari Leyendijk's, is Vince Granatelli's car, and Morris Nunn, a guy that we've watched take Emo to so much success with the Pat Patrick team, the engineer. Morris Nunn on that car right there now.
Of course, that's Vince Granatelli and Bob Teasacker together on that machine. And Leyendijk, you know, if he's at the art gallery half of the day and at the shop the other half of the day with his evenings, did you know, Sam, that he collects Ferrari models? Apparently has an incredible collection of them. In fact, he was bragging about it. Right now, he's going to try to brag a little bit on the back of Scott Brayton, but he doesn't get it done. Now the next opportunity to pass really doesn't come until the end of the shoreline straight. Here, the idea is simply not to lose time when you go through that hairpin. The chance of passing there is slim to none.
Well, just impossible to do, Paul, but, you know, they all try it. They're all there just in case a guy snaps, but you can't pass there.
Well, what you see, though, again, is a situation where if a pass is made, it's going to be made under braking. You see him? What he's doing now, Ari is giving Scott, he's given him a signal saying, I'm here, because he wants to make sure that when he does make that effort to pass, he takes that deep breath and goes in deeper than Scott Brayton. That Brayton sees him coming and they're not both put out.
Don't you think Ari's just trying to fake him and get Scott to drive where he can get around him the next lap? That's what's really
well, that
fun.
too, right?
That number 3 car is Rick Mears. He is in 6th place, so in the race he is ahead of this battle, but at the moment running behind them on the racetrack. And this is a position for Rick where he really has to be very careful, because that fight might be so concentrating on one another they don't even know a faster car is there.
That's absolutely right. You remember what we said earlier, Paul? The turns come so often and so fast here, you have very little time to watch your rear view mirrors.
The front of the field, Al Unser Jr. He's led all but actually now 3 laps of this race in a spectacular run, looking for 4 in a row here in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Rick Mears back on style.
This is when you're thinking to yourself, if you're Rick Mears, you're looking through your little black book and you're saying, I know Arie Luyendyk is a driver that's going to notice me coming. I'm not so sure about Scott Brayton. That's the kind of thing he might be thinking at.
Let's get a pit update from Jack Arute.
Paul, as you look at the front 3 positions, Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. seem to be very confident with their fuel loads. The same is not the case, though, in the Penske pit of Emerson Fittipaldi. They have radioed to their driver that they are just right on the money on fuel. But remember, he pitted on lap 35, 2 laps earlier than Unser and Andretti. So they could be right on the ragged edge in terms of fuel as this race winds down.
It's been a remarkably safe race, as you see that Mears was able to get around Arie Luyendyk and thread his way through. Now he has to handle up Scott Brayton just ahead. Scott, there it is. Rick Mears just ducks to the inside as Luyendyk wisely takes a fast outside line there and lets Rick come on through and move up.
Rick's the guy that supposedly has been the oval track expert, not too good at road circuits, but we've watched him getting better, and that's because his feet were hurt in Canada. Now, Rick is doing a lot better now, but as we watched him through the practice...
Oh, Mario with a problem. Mario by the edge of the course. Doesn't look like anything. The car looks in good shape. Maybe it's just a pull-off. The safety team is there.
He's been running 5th. A solid performance. This has got to be a major disappointment. It's stuff like this that really affects the championship.
Well, we'll see whether he has a mechanical problem or whether he's just trying to get him. He doesn't seem too excited about it, so I'm inclined to think maybe he has a mechanical problem.
Sam, it's stuff like this that doesn't just affect the championship. It really affects Mario.
A career, possibly. We know we're looking in the last few years of his career now.
Let's get an update on the problem here from Jack Arute.
Well, it was very simple. Mario Andretti radioed into his crew that the engine started to misfire. A big backfire, and then the engine just stopped.
Oh, what a terrible... Look at there. Look at disappointment.
Well, you know that Michael will be passing him and wondering what's wrong with Dad.
Mario Andretti tries to catch his breath as he tries to get his car out of harm's way at the edge of the race car. So Mario Andretti joins the rest of those done for the day. Paul Tracy, Mark Dismore, Mike Groff, Scott Pruitt, Buddy Lazier, and Dennis Vitolo already out. And the battle resumes as Arie Luyendyk finally makes his way around Scott Pruitt. So that fight is now resolved as well. At the front of the field, the fight remains Al Unser Jr. in a race that has only seen one slight brush with the wall, and that was Scott Pruitt. As far as any kind of accident, none at all. 50 laps complete, 95 the scheduled distance. We're past the halfway point. Al Unser Jr. is definitely on his way. In front in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, it's an Al Unser Jr. day. The track that he has so dominated the past 3 years, he continues that kind of performance. 10.5 seconds ahead of second place Michael Andretti. In third place is Emerson Fittipaldi and then Bobby Rahal. Now, Michael Andretti and Fittipaldi are right with one another. Here you get an idea. Look back, look at all that empty track behind little Al as we wait for the number 2 car of Michael Andretti come through, and there it is. That's the distance that must be made up. But notice as well, that number 5 car is third place, Emerson Fittipaldi. Now he is in direct challenge with Michael.
Emerson's got to be the real original bulldog. He will not give up. He's a very strong man. He's a very stubborn man. And even if the car's not handling perfect his liking, he's going to push it, Paul. But it looks like they've got a car handling a lot better than it was.
It's a battle that spans generations, too, because Fittipaldi is 44 years old. Michael Andretti only 28.
Let's go to the Penske pits. Jack Arute.
Paul, we were wondering, as we said out loud back to you, as to whether there might be a fuel problem with Penske's team. Well, Roger has now radioed to both of his cars that fuel is a concern and they should turn down the boost. Also, a postscript on Mario Andretti's problems. It's now been confirmed that it's something in the electronic control management system. That's the electronic brain for all these Indy cars.
And on a warm day, typical Southern California day, heat, both the ambient heat and the heat generated by the engine and the components in the race car can fry some of those electronic components. They're still a weak link in the chain. By the way, Al Unser Jr. has now clinched the one bonus point for running the most laps. So Al Unser Jr. picks up a point for that. Michael Andretti picked up a point when he sat his car on the pole. Now, this is not the only racing this weekend here in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. One of the many events held during the weekend is the Pro Celebrity Race. Let's take a look at the results of this event and the hoopla around it. The Toyota Celebrity Race at Long Beach once again boasted a star-studded field. Some of entertainment's best came out to test their driving skills and raise money for children's hospitals.
I really enjoy being in the car. I really enjoy the feeling of hanging it out there a little bit, you know. It's the same kind of yahoo that you get when you fly off the high bar. There's that same thrill, but you have to be in control at the same time, and I love finding that balance.
We get lots of chances in the TV business to get our kicks, and those of us who are adrenaline junkies can find it other ways. The fact that people are benefiting from this, I think, is the real reason to do it.
And how prestigious is it to be involved? Well, Michael Baumer bid $28,000 at a charity ball for a 1992 ride. Well, the racing was fast and furious. At the start of the celebrity race, Bart Conner cut off Craig T. Nelson. Donnie Osmond took the lead. The pros got off to a smoother start 45 seconds later. Parnelli Jones going for the lead. The celebrities proved they were in it to win as well as Bart Conner and Dallas Raines tangled in turn one. They were both ticketed for trying to park illegally. And then there was Sir Jack Brabham battling with Dan Gurney. As they headed for a turn, Brabham forgot it was there, locked his brakes, and ran off the course. As the checkered flag flew, Donnie Osmond took the win, chased to the line by Mark Wallengreen and the coach, Craig T. Nelson, in third place. They were all in identically prepared Toyota Celicas. Parnelli Jones was the top pro finisher, and as Donnie received his trophy, he looks forward to strapping on the helmet again and defending his Toyota crown. Now there's the top five celebrity winners in the top four positions, and then of course Parnelli Jones takes the pro win. Danny Sullivan runs in 15th place. New colors for him, Alfa Romeo power.
Danny, of course, turned down what it became John Andretti's ride in the Pennzoil car, and that car won the season opener in Australia. Danny has been a front runner for the last 6 years with the Penske team, winning at least one race a year for 5 of those 6 years. He thought like a winner and acted like a winner. And yet now, here he runs in 16th place, and unless things change in a hurry, he faces a whole season battling in the middle of the pack. Insiders to the sport understand that his car is still being developed, but Danny, more than any other driver, has legions of fans outside the sport, and they may think that it's Danny who's losing his touch. So it's going to be a tough season for him. But Bobby, I know what you're going to say. He has sort of a golden parachute.
Well, he certainly does. And just a quick note on that. It's rumored to show you how serious Alfa is into the racing that they pay him $1.8 million, just the driver's contract, and that their yearly budget, Sam, is $30 million. Think about that.
Drivers are making that kind of money. What are you doing up here, Bobby Unser? Let's go down to the pits once again.
Well, one of the new wrinkles, if you look closely in the Craco Gallus or the Gallus Craco pit this year, numbers on the back of the uniform. Like so many other sports now, they're identifying for the folks, particularly back in the hometown of Albuquerque, by numbers so that they get a glimpse on television. You know that number 11 is Owen Snyder. John Dick over here is number 29. Mike Walter is number 67. Rick Gallus is number 35, etc. During the Super Bowl, they had a big party at the Gallus household in Albuquerque. They drew numbers out of a hat. They said, here, we'll go for it. This number was chosen because his brother-in-law, Steve Kinzer, 10-time World of Outlaw champion, carries that number on his car. Just another new wrinkle here in the champion's pit.
Some things remain the same, others change. At the front of the field with a 10.3-second lead is Al Unser Jr. But already in the pits, the crew begin to ready for the second round of stops. As you can see, many of them are at the track of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach.
New luxury condominiums on Ocean Avenue, some with swimming pools, health spas. 15 years ago, before they started holding the race, this city was forgotten and crumbling, and today it has a vibrant new skyline, city really looking ahead, not backward.
On board, Al Unser Jr., who looks only ahead, at once again a clear course with a 9.7-second lead. Now, that lead has been whittled down either through Little Al slowing it down a bit, and we'll try and keep track of his speed while we keep track of Michael Andretti's. But Michael's definitely closing in.
Well, I've been timing the cars occasionally, Paul, and what is really happening, Little Al's holding a lead of about 8 to 10 seconds and trying not to kill the race car. Now, I believe by the times he's running that he's got about 1.5 seconds in reserve. Now, Michael probably is slowing down too because they have to have good cars at the end of the race.
Let's go to the pitch. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, let's explain to you exactly how Michael Andretti will determine when he goes for his next pit stop. The first thing that he will do is he will check his dash as he comes across the start-finish line. He will then look and give a fuel reading off the dash. Once he's gotten that fuel reading, he radios it into his crew. They will take the information and they will translate it into their laptop computer here on pit road. They will then determine just when they should go. The laptop computer here will determine just when they think they should pit. The one variable that they cannot control electronically, and they say will play the critical role as to whether they pit between lap 70 or 75, is what the leader, Al Unser Jr., does.
You know, all pit stops are always determined by the leader. You know, the way you think is always determined by what the leader does.
But you know, that's just the way we refuel our family car at home.
Oh, right.
I say to Ellen, you know, Ellen, I think the darn thing is almost out of gas. And she said, why don't you fill it up?
Well, Scott Brayton and Eddie Cheever have been at it once again as they continue their battle. Fight also continues up in second place between Michael Andretti with Emerson Fittipaldi just following as best he can. And the leader of the race has some traffic now to deal with. That's John Andretti that sits just ahead in that bright yellow Pennzoil machine. John, the winner of the first race of the season, held this year for the very first time off of the North American continent in Australia. Yeah, the teams loved it.
And John Andretti running 6th now. It's interesting that if the race ended right now, how would the championship stand? Turns out that he would be tied for the championship lead with 28 points with Bobby Rahal. Rahal now running 4th. That's something on Al Unser's mind, too.
Still running at a record pace, 87 miles an hour. The record's 85.5 as Al Unser Jr. takes the opportunity to duck under, hit the brakes a little bit harder, get there first, and get around John Andretti.
That means John Andretti is having problems with his brakes, or at least that he is babying them, because Al Unser Jr. cannot outbrake John Andretti by that big a margin under ordinary circumstances.
Sam, you're wrong. That's the one thing that little Al has got going for him above everything else that he has as far as being a good race driver. He's able to brake later than any driver I've ever seen in my life. Now, Michael Andretti is extremely good. His father, Mario, is very good. Nobody can brake as good as little Al, and that's where he always does his passing.
Well, that's part of the key to his success here, and I buy that assessment overall. But in this instance, he can't have that much superiority. I'm convinced that we're seeing a little babying of the brakes.
We take a look at those out of the race. Bobby Unser, you and I were talking about this. The classic diagram as we ride on board with little Al is that you get all of your braking done before you turn the wheel. That's what they teach in the schools, and that's probably a pretty bright way to do it, because if you're on the brakes hard when you try and turn, the car isn't going to turn well. But a guy like little Al brakes all the way into the corner.
He does, Paul, and the trick and the secret to the whole thing is what we saw when he passed John Andretti is to brake as late as possible. But I don't mean when you start your braking. I'm talking about don't brake with a lot of pressure real early on when you first hit your brakes, but try to make the graph or the line go right down to where he's actually turning going into the turn. And he's got exceptionally good depth perception, and this is what works for that.
And may I add that this is only done by a limited number of the top championship drivers in the world, not to be tried in your passenger car.
I think it's something it's inherited.
Let's go to Mario Andretti's pits.
Well, Paul, we've already told you that the problem with Mario's car was the ECM, the electronic brain. A very disappointed Mario Andretti is with us. First of all, Mario, what were the track conditions like? We've got a blistering pace so far.
conditions were good. You know, it's a perfect day weather-wise, and the track is quite clean. So, yeah, the lap times are incredible.
When you get no warning, and it seemed as if you didn't in the cockpit, the disappointment's got to be double when it happens.
Well, it's, what can I tell you? You know, it's very disappointing indeed. But I had a little problem with the second set of tires we put on. But other than that, you know, the car was a lot better than it was in practice. We had a big problem in practice. I think we solved that at least.
Well, the Kmart team still has one guy to cheer for, and that's his son, Michael. And he's out there trying to chase down Al Jr. Thank you, Mark.
Mario Andretti moves from driver to spectator and, in fact, will root for Al Unser Jr. Bobby Rahal, he runs in 4th place. Guys, next Saturday here on ABC Sports, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock Central, ABC's Professional Bowlers Tour continues with the $160,000 Tums Classic. And then at 4:30, 3:30 Central, ABC's Wide World of Sports has a great heavyweight bout. Undefeated Riddick Bowe battles Tony Tubbs live from Atlantic City. Plus the road to the Kentucky Derby heats up with the Wood Memorial Invitational presented by John Deere Lawn Care Dealers. It's all next Saturday here on ABC Sports.
Mario, I think, will root for Michael, but there is conjecture that if Michael gets a Formula One ride, that Mario might abandon his career here and go over and spend the summer with his son.
I hope not.
I think no, they won't do that, but I think we need to also mention that Michael wants the ride, but he doesn't really have it yet. He's in a testing contract. If they like Michael, which I certainly think they should like him, he'll leave, but otherwise he's here.
Well, 66 laps are complete. Calculations going on in the pits. We'll be back with more of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Some anticipation in Michael Andretti's pits, the crew over the wall, as they are down in the Penske pits as well, anticipating a stop just any time. One of the reasons for this anticipation is yellow flags flew for oil laid down on the main stretch just moments ago. Here is Little Al as he moves past Rick Mears. Mears running in 5th place, so now Little Al is overhauling this field. The question was some debris and some oil on the main straightaway. And when the team saw those yellow flags come up, they said, whoa, this may be a chance. There's Eddie Cheever already in the pits, and he makes his stop on the 69th lap. Cheever was running in 7th place before he came in for this stop. Randy Lewis rolls in as well. So he checks his mirrors. You notice that roll of the head. He very carefully looked at both sides because he doesn't want to make any sudden moves in the pits under the possibility that somebody is running down on top of him. And now he comes into the pits. You also saw him reach up and pull a tearaway off of his helmet, which helps clear his visibility on board with Al Unser.
Based on the pit stop previous, Paul, it would appear that most of them, at least the cars are running up front, are going to spin about 65 laps, but now we're full course yellow. It's going to change all the strategies. Here's Little Al.
And Al Unser Jr. jumps into the pits. Everything changes right now. Little Al's 15 seconds ahead. The stop should run 15 or so. But of course, there's roll in and roll out. Michael Andretti should, in fact, take the lead, but Michael Andretti comes in as well. Al Unser Jr. rolls away just as Michael Andretti hits the pits. And John Andretti, there's the cause of those yellow flags as John Andretti up against the wall. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, before the display of the full course yellow, Michael Andretti determined that he was going to come into the pits. Michael's away. Let's go to Gary Gerald. Gary?
And they finished service on Emerson Fittipaldi, and this is a quick stop, Jack. It was right around 11 seconds, but problem on pit road.
Terrible crash. It looked like the Andretti car for a second there as he came over the top of Fittipaldi. On the exit, we had just mentioned that it is Michael, and Michael got way in the air, but he reaches down, takes the steering wheel off. He's okay, but boy, it looked like he got high. Just exactly what we talked about just moments before that, and how careful you have to be when you jump to the pits so very quickly.
Look at this. It's going to be a confrontation, I think.
Michael Andretti runs back down the center of the pits. That car sits there, and Michael goes right for the Penske pits.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, it's really too late for any arguments. I know he's mad. It's really sad that it has to happen.
Look at him. Look at Michael right there down in the Penske pit saying, what were you thinking? What happened here? Michael Andretti, who was definitely in the fight. Here is Fittipaldi. As he started to move away, they waved him out. He pulled out and pulled fairly wide as he came out to avoid that pit in front of him. And there came Michael with no place to go, hit the brakes. Fittipaldi didn't have much choice, though.
Well, there wasn't any choice. That was, in a way, an unavoidable accident. It's a serious accident. It almost got Michael on his head, but what would Fittipaldi do? He just gave everybody else enough room. He came out. Unfortunately, he squeezed Michael in, but it was not an intentional thing.
Well, there's the first substantial incident of this race, as an angry Michael Andretti makes the long walk all the way to the pit entrance where his team is.
Let's say you're looking at it from Andretti's standpoint. He would say that the Penske men should not have waved Fittipaldi out, correct?
Sam, that's not true. That's maybe what he's thinking, but it's not true. Fittipaldi left plenty of time ahead of time. It's just one of those unfortunate things when two people can't fit in the same place.
Here's Fittipaldi coming back into the pits, and he's rolling through with damage on one side of the car, and Rick Mears had a problem with one of the pace cars.
Ran into the tire barrier.
So a race that has gone so smoothly suddenly is in total disarray.
One yellow flag, and we've got more action.
Oh, look at the damage on Fittipaldi. Look at that damage.
That's going to put him out one way or the other. That's going to be too severe damage to keep on going. We've lost a lot of cars over a very unfortunate incident.
And in the side pods of that race car are electronics, cooling systems. It's not just decoration.
All the brains are right in there, plus the cooling system, like you say, Paul, and plus their heat exchanger for the oil is right in there.
The man that gets away with it and comes through so very smooth. Look at Michael. He doesn't believe it.
Nowhere to go.
The double flags, of course, means we have a full course yellow as the field lines up behind the pace car, and we will come back to a restart as soon as they have all the debris cleared away, both on the track and down in the pits. Al Unser Jr., well, they close up behind him as well. It's going to be quite a finish. Well, you see a course condition flag and the yellow flags there, and this is that turn that caused the problem for the pace car, driven, by the way, by Johnny Rutherford. Apparently, when they got into the side of Fittipaldi's car in the pits, they hit all the coolant lines, and he was trailing coolant when he came through here, which is just slicker than can be. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
And finishing a conversation with Jim Hall of Hall VDS Racing is John Andretti. And John, unfortunately, was the man who created the yellow situation to begin with. Now, what happened from your standpoint?
Well, I was just going down the front straightaway, and pretty much you can sleep through the corner because it's easy flat and in top gear. And I was talking to Larry on the radio, and then just as I quit talking to him, I picked up a real hard vibration. And I went to declutch, not knowing what it was, and just slow down. And the thing just spun around on me, so I don't know if we had a failure in the left rear or what, but something happened in the left rear of the car that you know, got me around.
And so in the space of two races, you've had the full gamut of emotions, euphoria in Australia and disappointment here. We wish you well next week in Phoenix.
Well, I hope we can get back on the other end.
All right, John Andretti. Paul?
Well, three of the Andretti clan are out, but it's been a good day for Mario's youngest son, Jeff. He's currently up to 9th place. Under yellow, Al Unser Jr. leads it. There's the pace car off, so we're ready to go. See the yellow flags come down. That means the green flag is up. And we're back to racing on Shoreline Drive. They come up to speed. Little Al, take a look back. Yellow and blue car. That's Bobby Rahal, runs in 2nd place. Gaggle of cars running just ahead that they have to separate up.
Rahal really doesn't want to get caught in that traffic like that. Little Al has a clean place to run now. No traffic right in front of him. It's really hurting Bobby.
He may not want to, but he's right there and having to fight with him if he's going to move up. There is there's Lyondike. Rahal runs to the inside of Cheever. Now he has only to handle Ari Lyondike in the number 9 car.
Well, little Al thinks to himself, in a sense, he gave up his big lead. On the other hand, the incident took out his toughest opposition in Michael Andretti.
Oh, I don't know. I think his own teammate, Bobby Rahal, can be plenty tough, though not necessarily so here at Long Beach. Now Rahal trying to catch Lyondike. It's not a battle for position, of course. What he's trying to do is get around Lyondike. He runs in 2nd place, and he wants to be able to start chasing Little Al again.
And just remember, Little Al is probably more worried about Rahal because those are the same team cars. That's the the Gallus Craco team, Maury Cranes. And hey, those cars are the same, Paul.
Cheever right behind Rahal.
Yeah, and I doubt if Little Al...
Oh, 2 cars together. It looks like the 22 car of Scott Brayton and Scott Goodyear. The Scots together in the turn. Oh, boy. Now, the corner workers might be able to push them both back and get them going.
I don't know. We may see another big yellow flag.
Yeah, see Scott Brayton. He's signaling. He says, get us out of here. Get us a tow. Look at that. Look at that. There's no lane there. So, boy, I hope everybody there should be waving yellows 2 or 3 turns ahead of this, telling them to slow down and look out for this.
There is room to get by, of course, but that's not in the racing line, and it would be very easy for a driver to come around that corner and plow right in.
Jr. be the first car to get there. Just 2 more corners to go. Goodyear was 5th. Brayton was in 8th place just before this. Now he's got a right-hander and then a left-hander, and that left-hander is the approach to the hairpin.
Good. Now he's going to see
now he's coming
Goodyear
around.
being pulled back.
All right, here is little Al as he comes to the hairpin. Yeah, look how careful. But
good work by the course workers. That was quick, and they also did exactly the right thing, which is as important as acting fast.
Excellent job by those course workers and the officials there.
They are really good course workers, both here and all through the season.
Here's what happened. And see, Brayton was just caught outside of another car. And he was outside of Scott Goodyear, and Maschusta was out there as well, and the 2 of them got together.
We've always said you can't pass there. I see the cars right now 3 abreast. Of course, 2 of them didn't make it. That's one place where you really shouldn't try to pass.
Maybe they were right.
Yeah, they're confirming what we already believed. You can't pass there, and don't try it.
Bobby's grasp of the obvious.
Every couple of years, we need an opportunity to remind us of that. Al Unser Jr. out in front now. Of course, as Jack explained in the scenario on the flags, that means that is a yellow flag in that area of the racetrack only. So little Al can go fully back to speed everywhere else. One more time, there's the situation. Scott Goodyear and Brayton were just racing with one another, and neither one of them worked in it.
Well, they don't have enough turning radius in the cars, or they just won't turn tight enough to do that. In other words, if he could have turned his wheels another 2 degrees, he wouldn't have got caught, and Scott Goodyear would have made the pass on Brayton, but it didn't work out.
You also got a glimpse there as they came onto the straightaway at Shoreline of that red and yellow stripe flag, which also tells you that coming off of that hairpin, it's a little slick.
A little slippery. That means the front wheels might have been pushed a little bit too, Paul.
All right, Tony Bettenhausen in a fight for 10th with Danny Sullivan. Danny in that number 20 car.
Must be very disappointing for Danny to go from leading races, winning races, to running this far back. And one has to wonder whether it's worth the money or not. This team will do better. It's a good team. Alpha, of course, is continually developing the engine, but it has to make you wonder how the driver thinks.
81 laps are complete for Danny, too, knowing that he has a full year of development work lying ahead of him. Let's go down. Now Jack is with Johnny Rutherford, the pace car driver.
Paul, you can see the damage that's been done to the PPG pace car. As we look to the front end, that's what barreling into a tire barrier will do to you. Johnny Rutherford is actually the driver of the car, and he's no wanker when it comes to driving a race car or a pace car driver. Let's see if we can get a couple of words with Johnny as to what the problem was. What happened down there?
Well, it's a little bit embarrassing, but there was a lot of oil in the first, second, and third turn, and in a fourth turn, and got in there. I was watching mirrors in my mirror to make sure I had the field gathered up. Slid right into the tire barrier. The car just would not turn on that oil. It was really slick, and like I say, it's a bit embarrassing.
But it's also a reason why PPG in the IndyCar World Series requires professional drivers to drive the car.
Yeah, we're on a standby. We gotta go.
Okay, and you can see he was injured. He took a bad, nasty cut to the forehead when his head hit the roll bar, Paul.
Johnny Rutherford. Somewhat embarrassed, I think, especially so since Johnny's planning on starting high-performance driving school, a race driving school.
Well, over that one, he better not have too much embarrassment, because there's nothing wrong with that cat as far as
Believe me, anybody can score the championships and the 3 Indy wins he has.
As you see Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal almost in the same frame now. You got to realize Al Unser probably has, if he hasn't been able to do the arithmetic in his mind in the car in the heat of battle, he knows that Rahal finished second down there in Australia, and that a strong finish by him here is going to catapult his teammate into the points lead. Rahal right now, if the race ended, would have 32 points against Al Unser Jr.'s 22. And you know, in some ways, you battle the other guys, but you also battle your teammate for supremacy within the team.
Well, he just gets clear of Scott Brayton. He has Ari Leyendijk ahead, and once he gets clear of that, disappearing around the corner just up there. That's his teammate, the leader, Al Unser Jr. Now, when these two cars, out of the same team, the Gallus-Craco organization, were unloaded, they were both running very, very fast. So that has to tell you, not only are the drivers good, but the team knows something mechanical, don't they, Bobby?
They certainly do. And remember, some of the mechanics switch around from one car to the other, from one year to the other, and they all work together in the same rooms.
You're looking back from Bobby Rahal.
The cars, other than the fact of how the driver prefers his own little settings to be, the cars are identically the same, and nobody has a preference to the engines. So it's a total equal team.
So the order is Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, Eddie Cheever in third, Rick Mears in fourth. Fifth place is Ari Lyondike. Ted Prappas, rookie, runs in sixth place. Scott Goodyear, prior to the incident, was running in sixth. He's fallen back to eighth place. Scott Brayton now runs just behind Scott Goodyear. So the Scots still together on the course.
You see the view, of course, for Bobby Rahal's car. Remember, he finished second 5 times last year, and he began this season by finishing second again. He now runs second. I would think
if you run second enough times, you're going to get it before long.
Going to get it. Exactly.
The 31 car, that belongs to Ted Prappas, who comes out of the ARS series. They now call it the Indy Light series. Interestingly enough, his mother has been Jimmy Stewart, the actor's, has been his business manager for many, many years. Ted Prappas, spectacular ride.
Interesting that you make that point, because Prappas himself looks like an actor. You see, he lives in Los Angeles, very much part of the scene out here. It's a shame that he has flowered so late. He's 35 years old. I think if he'd had the opportunities earlier in his career, we'd see him running at the front.
Nice guy. We had a luncheon the other day as part of the ongoing festivities here in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, and we kind of made him the pivot of a lot of teasing, and he took it very, very well. I don't doubt, though, he's going to get even with me when it's all over.
Did you watch on board with little Al? Go around the track with the people, or let the people watch him on his shifting. You can tell whether he's going forward with his hands or back with his hands.
For the first time.
Give you an idea how many times they shift and how easy it is and how quick it goes.
Get a glimpse there of Scott Goodyear just behind little Al. You notice he doesn't have his left front wing, so that confrontation with Scott Brayton cost him a little bit.
Yeah, Bobby, what I was going to say is for the first time that shifting is being done with some real urgency, because little Al is under attack for the first time in the race. Bobby Rahal is running, if anything, closer to him with each lap. He's catching him slightly.
You would wonder in this day of aerodynamic race cars, not having a nose wing like that might affect the race cars. Surprisingly, not nearly as much as you might think. Remember that Al Unser Jr. tapped Mario Andretti a couple of years ago, bent his ring almost vertical, and then he was still able to go ahead and...
Yeah, but that was so late in the race. I wouldn't want to drive one wing.
The reason for that is that the wings don't really work an awful lot at 60 miles an hour and slower, Sam and Paul. So therefore, most of the turns here are slow turns. So you don't see that much effect on it.
It would make a big difference at Indianapolis, for example. Much less.
Whale of a difference at Indy. With a 2.5-second lead, Al Unser Jr. over Bobby Rahal. We have 9 laps to go.
It was 2.76 seconds. From the lead to second, it is now 2.50.
The question in the closing laps will not only be speed, but it will be interval, and how much Bobby Rahal will have to overcome in regard to other traffic that might separate them.
And everybody keep in mind, there's no necessity for more fuel. They've all had their last fuel stops. We knew that a long time ago.
Well, also, of course, Bobby, if he were able to close up, would have to make the pass, and it would be the father and mother of all passes.
So for a while, it has been a dominated race by Al Unser Jr., but now with several most unusual incidents, his teammate Bobby Rahal is beginning to close in. It should be a fight to the finish. We'll be back with more of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach right after this. Recognizes not only the car that he tends to, that's little Al's car, but the team car, Bobby Rahal, are running first and second. And now you wonder if those two teams are going to talk to each other. They're all in the same garage, but boy, they've got a battle going between them. I'll bet they're loving it. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, Barry Green, Paul, as you're well aware, is the guy who calls the shots with Bobby Rahal. Barry, how much communication between you and Rick Gallis and the opposing team you're chasing?
Well, we've been pretty busy, Gary. You know, it's a tight race on fuel. We've been running right on the ragged edge, you know, and so we've been busy in our own pits. But right now we're racing each other, so we're just doing our own thing.
You're down to within a couple of 2 to 3 seconds consistently with time running out. Is there enough muscle in your mind to overtake Unser?
Well, you know, Al's running really hot right now, and Bobby, he's run the best race I've ever seen him run here. He's scheduled, he paced himself throughout the whole race, right on the fuel schedule, and I'm really pleased to be right where we're at. Yeah, he could beat Al. Al's sure, I'm sure, looking in his mirrors.
Rahal was second 5 times last year. He was second in the season opener in Australia. Is he going to be second again?
I'll tell you what, if he continues just running in the position that he's in, he will leave this race with the points lead, and Bobby Rahal has never had the points lead this early in the season, even when he won both of his championships.
Well, neither one are going to give up. Rahal's going to push harder. As Sam said earlier, hey, he's second place all last year. He wants a win bad.
The interval widens just a bit, but Bobby Rahal is still in pursuit. Rick Mears runs in 4th place in a little battle with Arie Luyendyk.
Well, look at Rick Mears get sideways coming off the corner there.
That's Eddie Cheever just ahead of him.
Yeah, he's pursuing Cheever for position. That's why Mears is so inspired suddenly. 3rd place at stake. Mears pursuing Cheever.
Not just 3rd place, but in the season-long battle, those PPG points are at stake. Now you're on board with Eddie Cheever. Rick Mears is just behind and closing. Earlier, you said that Rick Mears had, in your mind, a reputation as an oval driver. He certainly does, but don't forget, in the early 80s, there was one time when Rick won every road race in the season.
He's very good on road circuits. He just had a problem with the speed. Is the only thing that held him back, I think, Paul.
Scott Brayton, Scott Goodyear, 15 and 22. Nice battle for 7th place as well. Boy, Brayton almost bobbled it. Front end pushed a little bit on him.
Remember, these are the 2 drivers that tangled about 10 laps ago. Both of them obviously not injured enough in that tangle, the cars, to keep them from running hard now.
Scott Goodyear's car, number 15, is slightly lame. You can barely tell it.
And at least he's better being on the front. In other words, if he was where Scott Brayton was without that wing, it would hurt him a lot more because of the disturbed air behind the other car.
Leader flashes across the line. 4 laps to go for Al Unser Jr. Bobby Rahal about 3 seconds back. This fight continues between Scott Goodyear and Scott Brayton for 7th place. Up touching 178 miles an hour on Shoreline Drive in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. There's Scott Brayton. For the moment, the fight breaks off. Surprising that Scott Goodyear, who should be down on aerodynamics, can stay in front. Let's go to the pits and Gary.
Green and the Rahal team. Rick Gallis here now with Al Unser. Can you account for the dominance on this circuit now, nearly 4 years long?
Well, my team's done a good job, but Gary's not over right now, so so far we've dominated it pretty good, and Al's a heck of a race car driver, and the team do a good job, and we like this racetrack. He's suited for it.
Your biggest concern on these remaining laps?
Just that something crazy doesn't happen, whether somebody gets in the way or something, but whatever happens, happens, but we're real happy right now. I'm happy for Bobby, too. That's a pretty good deal.
Indeed it is. The thoughts of Rick Gallis, Paul?
Well, if they do finish 1-2, it'll be the first time that the Graco team has done it, the Gallis-Graco organization, since they paired up in 1990 for the 1990 season.
That's hard on a guy like Rick Gallis, Paul. Just think of what he goes through with 2 cars running 1st and 2nd.
All right, this race has a very long caution flag owing to an incident on the course with John Andretti and the contact between Emerson Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti in the pit. So it's running just a bit beyond, not nearly on a race record, beyond the scheduled time. So we're going to be staying with this right to the end of the race. Shouldn't be too long, though. 92 laps are complete, 95 the scheduled distance. And here he comes by to complete lap number 93. Al Unser Jr. And there's Rahal right behind him.
For years, we watched the team of Roger Penske dominate events like this, winning and finishing second, too, sometimes. Now, suddenly, and we talked for years, too, about the changing of the guard, the younger drivers coming up to displace the
Debbie Rahal and car owner Maury Cranes.
Now I think we're seeing the change of the guard in terms of team ownership. ownership. Crane's here on the right, teammate or co-owner with Rick Gallis. These are the new top dogs in the business.
Bobby Rahal looks just hoping to catch a glimpse of his teammate ahead. Then he has something truly to judge by. He won't see him here, but perhaps when he gets out on Seaside, this left-hander than a right-hander, and maybe he can see and judge and knows what he has to do. And then the question is, can he do it?
3.5 seconds to 4 seconds. Little Al is ahead of this man right here, Bobby Rahal, and he knows where he is. He's got to push really hard, but he can't mess up, Paul, because the only chance he has of winning is to not mess up and hope Little Al does some way.
It's pure racing at this point. Fuel is not a factor. The long caution period gave them all the fuel they needed. Here comes Al Unser Jr. off the corner. Rahal closes in just a little bit more. As the white flag signifying one more lap to go. Comes out for Al Unser Jr. He's looking at 4 in a row at Long Beach. When has it been done before in the kart Indy cars? Simple answer, never.
I've never seen this happen. Of course, he hasn't come around the last lap. Rahal's still hoping something's going to happen. Little Al being as careful as he can possibly be.
It's a time that can drive a race car and a race car driver's wife crazy as Shelley continues to listen to the radio transmissions. But Little Al is listening to that race car. It's been strong all day, but he knows, as do we all, that anything could go wrong at any time, and it wouldn't take very much to stop the onward momentum of this machine.
Lady Luck's been good to him, because just compare that with Michael Andretti, who didn't get the good luck today.
Debbie Rahal, she watches Bobby Rahal running in second place. But Bobby Rahal would have to have a miracle now, because there's the hairpin turn ahead of Little Al, and they already recognize that almost anything could go wrong now, and he could roll to the finish ahead of Rahal. There is Al Unser Jr., and he wins the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, and that, by the way, is the 50th win for the Chevrolet Racing Engine. 16 career wins for Little Al. He picks up 4 straight Toyota Grand Prix in a row. Rick Mears, in his continuing battle, comes to the line, but Cheever is able to hold him off. So it's Al Unser Jr., followed by Bobby Rahal, then unofficially Eddie Cheever, Rick Mears, Ari Luyendyk, Ted Prappis, Scott Goodyear, Scott Brayton, Jeff Andretti in 9th place, and Didier Tays comes home in 10th. A remarkable day with some surprises. This is Paul Page for Bobby Unser, Sam Posey, Gary Gerald, and Jack Arute. We'll see you next week at Phoenix.